Hello everyone. In this video, you are going to see how to launch an Amazon EC2 instance, which is a virtual server in the cloud. Install your application and make it available to your customers as soon as possible. The advantage of using Amazon EC2 service is that you get a virtual machine in the cloud and you have complete control of that instance. So you are the root, you are the administrator of that instance. And you can install whatever software you want. You can do the configurations as you need, install the necessary software, deploy your application, control what access users can have to your instance, as well as what access your instance can have to the outside network. And because you are using AWS service, you don't have to plan the capacity in advance. So you can start with a smaller size capacity in terms of CPU, memory, storage. And as your demand increases, then you can change to a bigger size. Also, you have multiple pricing options, so you can choose the one that suits your needs. So now let's see how to launch an EC2 instance. So you can also type the link console.aws.amazon.com, and assuming you have already created an account in AWS, you can log in either using the email ID that you used to create the account, that is called as the root user, or if you have created any additional users, you can log in with an IAM user. So I am going to log in with an IAM user. So you need to give the account ID or the alias that you created, then the IAM user name and the password. So when you log into the console, there are two types of consoles. If like sometimes when you log in, the first time you log in, you might be getting an older version of the console. So this is how it looks like. And it also allows you to switch to a new console that AWS is bringing in. So I have chosen the new console, and that's what you see, wherein you can adjust what widgets you want to see, favorites, recently visited sites, and cost, and so on and so forth. And now you can search for EC2 in the search bar. And then if you want this to be your favorite service, you can also click the star, so it always appears here. The other way is click on services, and then you can scroll through the different types of services, and within compute you can select the EC2 service. Now when you go to the EC2 dashboard, you actually land on to the EC2 dashboard for a particular region. So when you log in for the first time, usually you are directed to a default region. It could be North Virginia, it could be Oregon, it could be whatever. And the first thing that you need to do is to choose a region. So you should choose a region to launch your EC2 instance depending on where your primary customer base is, so that the application is hosted from a region which is nearest to the user, so that causes less delay in the transactions, in the communication from the user to the application. So I'm going to select Mumbai, and then you can see the different things. So how many instances are there? You have different pricing options. So do you want to go for the spot instances? Do you want to go for savings plans? Do you want to reserve instances? Do you want to purchase dedicated hosts? So all these different options are there. We'll go with the simple one for now. So click on instances, and on the right top you'll see launch instances. So click on launch instances, and now you will get to select which AMI or Amazon machine image you want to start your instance with. Okay, so this comes bundled with the operating system. Some of the AMIs also include some software installed, so you can choose whichever suits your need. So there are a lot of AMIs which are available and eligible for free tier. So if you have chosen a free tier account, you can choose the ones which do not incur any additional licensing charges. So here we have Amazon Linux, there are Mac OS, you have Red Hat Linux, SUSE Linux, Ubuntu, Microsoft Windows, and so on. So I'm going to choose the Ubuntu Linux. So either you can scroll down or you can type the name of the operating system and it will bring you all the available options. Now, these are some of the pre-built AMIs from AWS. You can also choose AMIs from the AWS marketplace, or you could choose AMIs from community. So people often create their AMIs and then they share it, and other customers of AWS can reuse these AMIs. So right now we'll go with Amazon provided Ubuntu image. We'll go with the latest 20.04 version. Now you have a choice of selecting the type and the size of an EC2 instance. So the type denotes what kind of workload your application has, what characteristic it has. Is it compute intensive? Do you need more CPUs compared to memory? Do you need more RAM compared to CPUs? Do you need more storage? Do you need more network? So based on that, we have different instance families. So T series and M series are general purpose. So if you don't have a specific need or if you are not aware, then you can choose any of the T series or M series. T series have burstable performance. They don't have a consistent performance, whereas M series have a consistent performance. So if you need heavy workload and general purpose, you select M series. If you don't need a very heavy performance, very consistent performance, then you choose the T series amongst the general purpose. You can choose C series for compute intensive, D for storage, wherein you have more capacity, I for storage, wherein you have more IOPS, input output. So a lot of processing can be done in terms of number of requests that the disk can serve. And similarly, you have other types, R series for more RAM, X series for extreme RAM, and so on and so forth. So we will choose the free tier eligible, which is T2.micro, so that you don't incur much charges. So this is available for free for the first 12 months. Then click on configure instance details. So here you can decide whether you want only single instance to be launched or multiple instances to be launched in one go. Choose the network in which you want to launch your EC2 instance. So here currently I have only the default network, and then within the network you can choose in which availability zone and hence which subnet do you want to launch your instance. So I could launch in availability zone 1A, 1B, 1C of my choice. So right now I'm going to leave it default. So I'll leave all these things defaults and then click on next. Now here you can choose what size do you want for your root disk. So by default it will choose the size that the AMI was created with, and you can increase this size. Say for example I can change it to 10. You can choose what type of disk do you want. Do you want general purpose or very IO intensive? So I'll leave the default. If you want, you can add more disks. Suppose you want to store more data and you don't want that to be stored on the root disk, which is a good practice. Then you can add more volumes and you can choose what type of disk and how much size. So you can choose this. Right now I will leave it as default. You have this flag of delete on termination, which means that if you delete the instance, then the root disk will also get deleted. If you want the root disk to be preserved, even if the instance is deleted, then you can uncheck this box and then the root disk will stay even if you delete the instance in the future. So I'm going to keep it as delete on termination. Um, then you can click on add tags. Now here you can add tags, like you can give a name of the instance. So say for example I want to give the name as VM1. You could add some more tags, like suppose you want to add a department. Okay, maybe let's say engineering department. So tags are just labels which help you categorize or group certain instances into a set. So this is purely optional. Uh, it's good if you add at least the name tag, so that when you go to your EC2 console, you are able to distinguish which VM or which EC2 instance is which. Next, click on security groups. So here you can either select one of your existing security groups if you have one, or you can create a new security group. So security group is like a firewall which is attached to your EC2 instance, and it controls what traffic is allowed in to the instance and what traffic is allowed out from the instance. So I'm going to create a new security group, and I'm going to call it my Linux security group. And because it's a Linux security group, I need port 22, which is SSH, so that I can log in to my EC2 instance. You can add more rules. Say, for example, if this is going to be my web server, then I can add a rule which is to allow HTTP server into the server, into my server. And you can choose from where this traffic should be allowed. So do you want to specify a certain range? So suppose you want to allow only from your data center, from your private network, then you can define the IP address range for your data center. Or if you want to allow from anywhere, because you want to allow internet based access for all your customers, you don't want to restrict a specific IP, you can select this as anywhere. Now, the instance that I am going to launch, I am going to install a sample web application. So I'm going to open the port 80, and you can change this later on also. Then click on review and launch. You can review what you have selected and then click on launch. Now, when we launch the instance, after the instance starts, we should be able to log into the instance so that we can run different commands. So the method AWS uses or allows to for you to log into the instance is using something called as a key pair instead of username and password. This is a better practice. Um, so you can again choose an existing key pair, or you can create a new key pair. If the EC2 instance is such that it allows username password login, then you can choose proceed without a key pair. So it depends on what AMI you have selected and how it was configured. So we'll create a new key pair here. Now you can choose RSA as the option. Give a name to this key pair. So I'm going to say name AWS key, and then you can download the key pair. So the key pair will get downloaded in .pem format, and once it is downloaded, then you can click on launch an instance. Till that time, this option is not enabled. Okay, I'm going to launch an instance. So it initiates the launching of an instance. And if I go to view instances tab, now the instance is getting launched with whatever selections I had made. And in a very short time, it will come to the running state. Okay. So meantime, I will show you how to access the EC2 instance. Now to access your EC2 instance, you should be able to log into this using SSH. Now if you're on Windows, you need a software which is an SSH client so that you can connect to this server. Now you can get an SSH client called as Putty. This is a very popular SSH client. And if you search for Putty download, you can go to this link, and from here you can download the executable. So if you are on a 64-bit machine, then you can download it this bit, so 64-bit Intel version, 64-bit ARM version, or if you are on a 32-bit, which I doubt, then you can use this. So I have already downloaded this putty exe. What you will also need is the putty gen exe. So also download this, and I will explain why you need this. So the key pair that we downloaded was in a format called as PEM, PEM extension. And however, putty needs the format called as PPK. Okay. So to be able to convert from PEM to PPK, we need this putty gen. So what I will do is I already downloaded both putty and putty gen. So first I will open putty gen, and then I will load the file that I downloaded. So the file that I downloaded is in my downloads folder. So here select all files. So even the PEM file will be visible. So I'll open this file. So this has been successfully loaded in the generator, And now I will simply save this private key file. Okay, and I will say, okay, I don't want to protect it using additional password. So otherwise you can protect the key also with a password. And now I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to give it a same name, which is in AWS key, but the extension is going to be .ppk. Okay, so now this process of converting the key pair into ppk format is done. I can now use the putty application and load the key pair and then give the details of my EC2 instance to be able to log into the instance. So once you launch putty, then you can go to the connections tab and SSH, and within SSH click on auth, and this is where you can browse the key that you had created in the ppk format. Okay, and then go to the session, and if you want to use this key for all your sessions going forward, click on default settings and click on save. So this is going to save the settings that you have done so far, which is selecting the key pair. Now you can give the host name and log in to your EC2 instance. So by this time, our EC2 instance should have been running. So if we go here, yes, we can see it is running. Now to log into your EC2 instance, because you will be accessing it over the internet, you need to use the public IP address. Usually an instance will get a private IP address, which is an IP address within the AWS network, which is your VPC, and your private network within AWS. And other is the public IP address, which is the internet accessible. So I'm going to select this. Now, because I choose the Ubuntu AMI, the default user that is enabled in the AMI is called as Ubuntu. And I am going to use Ubuntu at the public IP address and click on open. So first it will ask me whether I am accepting this fingerprint. So am I aware? Am I consciously logging into this server? Which I said yes. And now you get logged in to your EC2 instance. So after logging into the EC2 instance, now what we want to do, we want to install the necessary software, deploy our application, and then make it available to our customers. So usually for any Linux system, once you launch a fresh Linux system, you would want to update with the latest system updates. So since this is Ubuntu, I'm going to run the command sudo apt update, which is going to update the EC2 instance, the Ubuntu OS, with any of the latest packages, the system packages basically. Okay, once this is done, now I want to make this a web server. So I'm going to install a web server software called as Apache HTTP server. And to do that, I'm going to use the command sudo apt install Apache 2. And I have this application which uses HTML and PHP code. So I'm also going to install the package PHP and hit enter. You can say Y to proceed. Okay. So once these packages are installed, let me check whether the Apache web server is running. So to do that, you can run the command sudo systemctl Apache 2 status. Okay, so it is the other way around. Status Apache 2. And you can see Apache server is running. So at this moment, if I go to this IP address and open it from my web browser, it is going to bring me the default page of Apache 2 on Ubuntu. Okay, and the reason I am able to access this is because we have configured a security group, if you remember, and in the inbound rules we had allowed port 80. Port 80 is the port on which a web server runs by default. Okay, so this Apache server is running on port 80. Now I don't want the default web page. I want to deploy my application. So what I'm going to do is I have written an application and made it available on GitHub. So I'm going to clone that from my GitHub repository into this server and then deploy that into the var www html folder. Okay, so this is my repository. So I'm going to clone that into this server. So I'll go to the /temp folder. You don't have to do this, but I'll just clone it over here. So the command is I can use basically git clone. Okay, and then give the GitHub repository path, and it has cloned my repository called as web pages. So if I see what are the contents of the directory web pages, it has a folder called as simple site, and so the simple site has an index.php because this is my PHP server, and it has some HTML code and some style sheet and some images. So I'm going to deploy this into the directory /var/www.html. So /var www.html is the place where all the web content that is served by the Apache server is deployed. So I'm going to change to root. Okay, and then I'm going to move the content from web pages, site, simple site, all the content to var www.html/. Okay, now I'll change to this directory and check that the files have come here. Now by default, when you only give the IP address, usually the browser will look for an index.html page, whereas my application uses the PHP. So I'm just going to remove the default index.html, and now I'm going to see whether my application is accessible. So if I go here and simply refresh the page, you see my application is accessible. And in fact, it also tells me from which server, what is the host name of the server from which this application is running. Okay, so if you see here, this is the name of the server. So if I run the command host name, that's the server that I'm going to get. So this is how you launch an EC2 instance. You install the necessary software, deploy your code, and then make it available to your customers. Thanks for watching.